The sky above Seoul turned purple on the morning of October 15th. People stopped walking. Cars pulled over. Children pointed at the clouds as something massive pushed through them, descending slowly like a mountain falling in reverse. Park stood at the edge of the landing zone, his hands steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. He was 42 years old, a captain in the United Earth Defense Council, and he had spent his entire career preparing for a moment that everyone said would never come. Aliens were science fiction. Aliens were movies and books and children's dreams. But the ship landing in front of him was very real. It was beautiful in a terrible way. The hull looked like liquid silver that had frozen mid-ripple. Lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost like breathing. The ship was larger than any building had ever seen, yet it touched the ground as gently as a leaf falling on water. Beside him, Doctor clutched her tablet with white knuckles. She was the council's best language expert, brought here because someone would need to talk to whatever came out of that ship. Her glasses kept sliding down her nose from the sweat on her face, but she did not move to fix them. "Captain," she whispered, "I studied 17 dead languages and 43 living ones. I don't think any of them prepared me for this." Almost smiled. "Just listen first, we'll figure out the rest." General Bay stood on the other side, his jaw tight enough to crack stone. He was an old soldier who had fought in 3 wars and trusted nothing he could not shoot. Today, he looked more scared than had ever seen him. The ship's side opened. There was no door, no hatch. The metal simply flowed apart like curtains made of mercury. Light spilled out, soft and golden, and from that light stepped a figure that would haunt human dreams for generations. Ambassador was tall, taller than any human. His body seemed to be made of crystal, clear in some places and clouded in others, with veins of blue light running through him like rivers seen from space. He had a face of a sort, 2 eyes that glowed softly, a mouth that moved, but everything else was wrong in ways that made the brain hurt to look at. Behind came others. Some looked similar to him, some were completely different. One was covered in hard shell like a beetle. Another floated without legs, its body wrapped in what looked like smoke. They moved in formation, clearly a delegation, clearly important. Stopped 3 meters from and spread his arms wide. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once, translated by some invisible technology into perfect Korean. "People of Earth, I am ambassador of the Galactic Concord. We come with open hands and peaceful hearts. For 300 of your years we have watched you grow, we have seen your struggles, your wars, your slow climb toward the stars, and now we offer you what we have offered to 47 civilizations before you: protection, partnership, a place in the galactic community." The words hung in the air, felt the weight of them pressing down on his shoulders. This was the moment humanity had imagined for centuries. First contact, the answer to whether they were alone in the universe. And the answer was no. They were not alone. There was a whole galaxy out there, full of life, full of civilizations, full of beings who had watched Earth like scientists watching bacteria in a dish. Stepped forward. His voice did not shake, though he did not know how. "Ambassador, on behalf of Earth, I welcome you. Your offer is generous, but I have a question." His glowing eyes seemed to brighten. "Of course, ask anything." "You offer protection," said slowly. "Protection from what exactly?" The silence that followed was unlike anything had expected. His crystal face did not move, but something changed in his posture. The other aliens shifted behind him. The one covered in shell made a sound that might have been a cough or might have been a laugh. "The galaxy is dangerous," said after a long pause. "There are threats, ancient enemies, cosmic dangers that a young species cannot face alone." "What threats?" pressed. "What enemies? Give me names, give me details." Looked at him with wide eyes. General Bay's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm, though what good a gun would do against beings who traveled between stars, no one knew. His light flickered. It was subtle but caught it. The ambassador was uncomfortable. In 8,000 years of offering protection to young species, perhaps no one had ever asked for specifics before. The Void Reapers said, the consuming swarm, the— I would like to learn more about these threats, interrupted politely. Before we discuss protection, we need to understand what we are being protected from. I am sure you understand. Stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered his arms. You are cautious, the ambassador said. This is unusual. Most species are eager to accept our hand. Bowed his head slightly. We are grateful for your offer. We simply wish to understand it fully. On Earth we have a saying, look before you leap. I do not understand this phrase. It means we like to know where we are going before we take the first step. Behind, the beetle-shelled alien made that coughing sound again. This time was certain it was laughter. His eyes dimmed slightly. Very well, Captain Park of Earth. We will answer your questions. We will show you everything you wish to see. And then, perhaps, you will understand why every species before you has accepted our protection with joy. Smiled, but his eyes remained sharp. Perhaps we will, he said, and perhaps we will have more questions. The first meeting between humanity and the stars had begun, and already the galaxy was learning something important about the small blue planet called Earth. Humans asked questions. 3 months had passed since the aliens landed in Seoul. The world had not ended. Panic had come and gone like a fever. Now humanity was doing what it did best, talking, arguing, negotiating. The meeting room floated high above Earth, inside the United Nations orbital station. Through the wide windows, the blue planet turned slowly, clouds swirling over oceans like cream in coffee. Minister sat at the head of the human delegation, her back straight and her face calm. She was 55 years old, had survived 2 assassination attempts, and had negotiated peace treaties that everyone said were impossible. Nothing scared her anymore. Not even aliens. Ambassador sat across from her, his crystal body catching the starlight and breaking it into rainbows on the walls. Beside him sat the beetle-shelled military officer and 3 other conquered representatives whose names had memorized on the first day. Let us review your offer one more time, said, her voice pleasant. You will provide us with a planetary shield network. You will send military advisors to train our forces. You will connect us to galactic trade routes. You will give us a seat on the Concord's Assembly of Protected Worlds. In exchange, we agree to join the Concord as a protected species. That is correct, said. A generous offer, one that has brought prosperity to dozens of civilizations. 47 civilizations, said Admiral Minu from his seat beside. We counted. Slight flickered. You have been thorough. We try. Minu touched a button and a holographic display appeared in the center of the table. Star maps, communication logs, trade records, all of it gathered from the data the Concord had shared during the past 3 months. We have been studying your records carefully. We have some concerns. Shifted in his seat, his shell clicking. Concerns? What concerns could you possibly have? The Concord has protected species for 8,000 years. Our record speaks for itself. It does, agreed Dr. Shin, the delegation's historian. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. That is exactly the problem. May I? Nodded. Stood and walked toward the hologram. The Void Reapers. You mentioned them as a threat. According to your own records, they were defeated 412 years ago. The consuming swarm has been contained in a quarantine zone for 6 centuries. The last major war in this region of the galaxy ended before your civilization discovered faster-than-light travel. She turned to face. Ambassador, what exactly are you protecting these 47 species from? The silence was heavy. Shell clicked faster now, a nervous sound. His glow dimmed. The galaxy is unpredictable, said carefully. New threats can emerge at any time. In 8,000 years, how many new threats have emerged? Several. How many were serious enough to require the conquered's full military response? Did not answer. Professor O leaned forward. He was the delegation's game theory expert, a man who spent his life studying how people and nations tried to gain advantage over each other. I have been looking at your economic data, he said. Every protected species receives technology from the conquered. They do not develop their own. After a few generations, they cannot maintain their infrastructure without conquered support. Their economies become dependent on conquered trade routes. Their young people are encouraged to join conquered military forces, which slowly becomes their main export. He paused. In human terms, Ambassador, you do not conquer, you do not enslave. You simply help until the helped cannot survive without you. It is very clever, very patient. Stood suddenly, his shell rising like armor. You accuse us of deception. We have given everything to our protected species. Security, prosperity, peace. And in return, asked quietly, what do you receive? Gratitude, alliance, friendship. And resources, Minu added. According to these records, protected worlds pay maintenance fees for their shield networks. They provide raw materials at fixed prices that have not changed in 3,000 years. They send their children to serve in your fleets. He looked at. You are not protectors. You are farmers, and we are being asked to be your crop. Rose to his full height, light pulsing through his crystal body. No species has ever spoken to the conquered this way. No species has ever read the fine print, replied calmly. You would refuse our hand. You would stand alone in a galaxy you do not understand. Smiled, it was not a warm smile. Ambassador, we understand more than you think. We have spent 5,000 years on our little planet building empires and watching them fall. We have written contracts and broken them. We have been conquered and we have conquered. We have learned the hard way that nothing is free. Everything has a price, and we like to know the price before we pay it. She stood, matching height with her dignity if not her body. We are not refusing your hand. We are asking to see both hands before we shake one of them. Stared at her for a long moment, then slowly he sat back down. What do you want? He asked. Smile widened. Now we are negotiating. She nodded to Lawyer Lee, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, a thick folder in her hands. Stood and walked to the table, placing the folder in front of. 342 pages, said cheerfully. Amendments, conditions, and reciprocal obligations. We worked very hard on it. Take your time reading. Made a sound like a kettle boiling. This is absurd. No species negotiates like this. Diplomat laughed softly from her seat. You have clearly never bought a house in Seoul. Opened the folder. His crystalline eyes moved across the first page, then the second. By the fifth page, his glow had faded to almost nothing. You want full technology transfer, he said. Manufacturing rights, command over your own forces, the ability to leave the agreement at any time. Among other things, agreed. The High Council will never accept this. Then perhaps you should not have offered us protection. We did not need from threats that do not exist. Closed the folder. He looked then at the rest of the human delegation, warriors and scholars, diplomats and lawyers, all of them watching him with the same calm, stubborn expression. What are you? He asked softly. General Bay, who had been silent the entire meeting, finally spoke. We are humans, he said, and we did not survive this long by being easy. Lieutenant Han had been living among aliens for 3 months. She slept in a small cabin on the conquered flagship. She ate food that tasted like nothing and everything at once. She watched and listened and pretended to be impressed by everything she saw. The conquered had offered to host human observers as a gesture of trust. They wanted to show humanity how wonderful life could be under their protection. They had expected the observers to come back amazed, grateful, eager to sign whatever agreement was placed in front of them. They had not expected someone like. She was 31 years old, short and quiet, with a face that people forgot easily. This was useful. People talked freely around her. They assumed she was just another curious human, too simple to understand what she was seeing. They were wrong. Had been trained by Korean intelligence for 7 years. She could read body language across species barriers. She could spot lies in the way someone breathed. And she had access to a quantum communication device hidden inside a ring that looked like cheap jewelry. Every night, she sent reports back to Admiral. Tonight's report was the most important one yet. She sat in her cabin, the door locked, the lights dim. Her fingers moved across a small screen, typing words that would change everything. I have confirmed our suspicions. The Conquered is not a protection alliance. It is a harvesting system. She paused, thinking about everything she had seen in the past 3 months, the protected species she had met, the way they looked at the Conquered with worship in their eyes, the way their children lined up to join the military, proud to serve, never questioning why they were needed. She continued typing. Every protected species follows the same pattern. First, the Conquered provides technology freely. Shield networks, transportation systems, medical advances. The species becomes dependent on this technology within 2 generations. They stop developing their own. Why would they? The Conquered gives them everything they need. In the corridor outside, she heard footsteps. She waited until they passed, then continued. Second, the Conquered manages population growth. They call it optimization. They help protected species maintain perfect balance with their resources, but the balance always favors the Conquered. Birth rates slowly decline. Each generation is smaller than the last. Not enough to notice at first, not enough to cause alarm, but over thousands of years populations shrink. His hands trembled slightly. She had seen the numbers. She had done the math herself, staying awake for 3 nights to make sure she was not wrong. Third, the Conquered recruits young people into its military forces. They frame it as an honor, a chance to see the galaxy. Protected species send their best and to serve in Conquered fleets. These soldiers rarely return home. They become Conquered soldiers, loyal to the crystal beings who saved their ancestors. She thought about the soldiers she had met on this ship. Dozens of species, all wearing the same uniform, all speaking of the Conquered with love and gratitude. They did not know they were products. They did not know they were the real resource being harvested. Fourth, protected worlds pay maintenance fees for their infrastructure. These fees are calculated in resources, rare minerals, biological compounds, clean water. The prices were set thousands of years ago and have never changed. By now, some protected worlds have given away more than half their planetary wealth. Stop typing. She looked at the ceiling of her small cabin, thinking about Earth, about Seoul, where she had grown up, about her mother's small restaurant and her father's fishing boat, about everything that made humans human. The Conquered wanted all of it, not through war, not through violence, through kindness that was not kind, through help that was not helpful, through a slow, patient process that turned proud species into grateful servants. She started typing again. The most important thing I have learned is this: the Conquered does not conquer. They do not need to. They simply wait. They offer help. They make themselves necessary, and after enough time passes, the protected species cannot imagine life without them. They have forgotten how to be independent. They have forgotten how to be free. She attached files to her report: economic data, population statistics, military recruitment numbers, interviews she had secretly recorded with members of a dozen species, all of them telling the same story without realizing it. Earth must not accept this agreement, not as it is written. If we do, our will be grateful servants. Our great will not remember what it meant to be human. She sent the report and waited. The response came 20 minutes later, encrypted and brief. Understood, come home, we have work to do. Smiled for the first time in months. The next morning, she requested transport back to Earth. Ambassador seemed surprised but did not stop her. Perhaps he thought she had seen enough to be convinced. Perhaps he thought she would return to tell her people how wonderful the conquered truly was. When her shuttle landed in Seoul, Admiral was waiting for her personally. Beside him stood Captain Park, Minister, and a dozen others she recognized from the news. "Lieutenant Han," said, her voice formal but warm, "your reports have been valuable, more valuable than you know." Saluted, "I only told you what I saw, Minister." "You saw what no one else was looking for," stepped forward and shook her hand. "Because of you, we understand what we are dealing with. Now we can plan accordingly." "What is the plan, sir?" Smiled. It was a dangerous smile, the kind that made enemies nervous. "We are going to do something the conquered has never seen before. We are going to accept their offer." Blinked, "Sir." "On our terms," added. "Every single one of our terms. And if they refuse—" She looked up at the sky, where somewhere far above, the conquered's diplomatic vessel waited for humanity's answer. "If they refuse, we will show them what happens when humans decide to protect themselves." Felt something warm spread through her chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. "I would like to help, Minister." "Good," said. "Because we have 342 pages of conditions, and we are going to make them accept every single one." The Concord's High Council chamber was the largest room Ambassador had ever seen. It floated at the center of a space station the size of a small moon, surrounded by stars that had watched civilizations rise and fall for billions of years. 12 crystal beings sat in a circle, their bodies glowing with the ancient light of their species. They were the rulers of 1,000 worlds, the protectors of 47 species, the architects of 8,000 years of galactic peace. And they were confused. "Explain this again," said High Counselor Meth, the oldest of them all. His crystal body was clouded with age, but his mind was still sharp. "The humans want what?" Stood in the center of the chamber, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his long life. "They want full technology transfer. They want manufacturing rights for all equipment we provide. They want their soldiers to remain under human command, even when serving in conquered fleets. They want the ability to leave the protection agreement at any time with no penalties. They want access to our historical archives. They want—" He paused. The list was very long. "They want to negotiate," he finished. Silence filled the chamber. The 12 counselors looked at each other, their lights flickering in patterns that could not read. "No species negotiates," said Counselor. "They accept or they refuse. Those are the only options." "The humans do not see it that way," said carefully. "Then they are fools. They are alone in a galaxy they do not understand. They have no fleet, no shields, no allies. They need us." "They do not believe they need us," replied. "They asked what we were protecting them from. When I told them about the Void Reapers and the consuming swarm, they researched our archives and discovered those threats were defeated long ago." More silence. The counselors shifted uncomfortably. "They are thorough," Counselor admitted. "I will give them that." "They are dangerous," said Counselor, the military commander. "A species that questions protection will eventually question everything. They will spread doubt to our other protected worlds. They must be brought into line or eliminated." "Eliminated" felt cold. "High Council, the humans have done nothing wrong. They have simply asked questions." "Questions are weapons," replied. "We learned this long ago. A species that thinks too much is a species that eventually rebels. Better to end the problem now while they are still weak." High Counselor Meth raised one crystal hand. The chamber fell silent. "We will not destroy the humans," Meth said slowly. "Such action would prove their suspicions correct. Word would spread. Other species would wonder if we are truly protectors or merely patient conquerors." He turned to, "What do the humans want most? What is the core of their demands?" Thought carefully. He had spent months with the humans now. He had watched them argue among themselves, watched them celebrate small victories, watched them mourn their dead from conflicts he barely understood. They were strange creatures. messy, emotional, divided into countless groups that seemed to disagree about everything. But when outsiders threatened them, they became something else entirely. They want to remain themselves, said finally. They do not want to become us. They do not want to become dependent. They want alliance, not absorption. Meth nodded slowly. Then we offer them alliance. The other counselors stirred. High Counselor, this is unprecedented, protested. We have never had an equal ally, only protected species. If the humans stand beside us rather than beneath us, others will demand the same treatment. Perhaps they should, Meth said quietly. The chamber erupted. Lights flickered wildly as counselors argued, their voices overlapping in a chaos that had never witnessed in this sacred place. Meth waited until the noise faded. 8,000 years ago we were alone, he said. Our world was dying. We reached out to the stars and found others who were also alone. We built the conquered to survive. We offered protection because we needed allies, needed soldiers, needed resources to rebuild what we had lost. He paused, his ancient light dimming. But we became comfortable. We stopped growing. We stopped changing. We became farmers, as the humans said, harvesting what we planted and never wondering if there was another way. He looked at. The humans have shown us a mirror. I do not like what I see in it. Perhaps it is time to change. The counselors fell silent. Contact the human delegation, Meth ordered. Tell them we will accept their terms, all of them. In exchange, we ask only one thing. What thing, High Counselor? Asked. Meth's light brightened, and for a moment saw something in the ancient being that he had not seen in centuries. Hope. Ask them to teach us how to be equal partners. We have forgotten how. 3 days later, Minister received the message. She read it 3 times, certain she was misunderstanding something. Then she called her team together. They accepted everything, she told them. Every condition, every amendment. They want to sign the agreement as we wrote it. Admiral frowned. There must be a trick. There is one condition, said. They want us to teach them. Teach them what? Captain asked. Looked at the message again, still not quite believing it. How to have equals. They say they have forgotten. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, Lawyer Lee began to laugh. 8,000 years of building an empire, she said, and they forgot the most important thing. They forgot how to make friends. Smiled, then I suppose we should teach them. Should we trust them? Lieutenant Han asked, after everything I learned about their system. Considered the question carefully. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly, beautiful and fragile and stubbornly alive. Trust is built, she said finally, not given. We will work with them, we will watch them. We will hold them to every word of this agreement, and if they betray us, we will make them regret it. She stood and straightened her jacket. But I believe they are sincere. I believe that somewhere in all that crystal and light, they want to be better than they have been. She picked up her pen and signed the agreement. Let us show them how. 50 years had passed since the day the sky turned purple over Seoul. Admiral Park stood on the observation deck of the Unified Horizon, humanity's first self-designed interstellar battleship. His hair was white now, his face lined with age, but his eyes were still sharp. Behind him, through windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, he could see the fleet assembling. Hundreds of ships, human ships, ships built with human hands and human minds, using technology that humans understood because they had learned to build it themselves. It is quite a sight, said Ambassador, walking up to stand beside him. Her hair had turned silver years ago, and she moved more slowly than she used to. But her smile was the same as it had been on that October morning when she had clutched her tablet and watched an alien ship descend from the clouds. I never thought I would see this, admitted. When I was young, I dreamed of the stars, but I thought they would always be out of reach. And now we have reached them, said, on our own terms. Below the observation deck, young officers moved through the ship's corridors. Some of them were human, some were not. Saw a tall and thin with skin like blue glass talking with a human engineer. He saw a small and furry with 4 arms teaching a group of cadets about navigation. He saw a dozen other species, all of them wearing the same uniform, all of them part of the same crew. Not a conquered crew, a Free Worlds Alliance crew. The Alliance had grown slowly at first. After humanity signed its agreement with the conquered, other species had watched carefully. They had seen the humans negotiate as equals. They had seen the humans keep their independence, their technology, their identity, and they had started asking questions of their own. 12 species had renegotiated their protection agreements within the first decade. 5 more had left the conquered entirely, forming independent nations that chose their own paths. The conquered had not stopped them. High Counselor Meth had kept his word. Now 32 species stood together in the Free Worlds Alliance, not protected, not dependent, equal. "Do you remember what Ambassador said when he first arrived?" asked. Nodded. "He called us vulnerable, alone." "And you asked him what we were being protected from?" "I did," smiled, remembering the fear he had felt that day. The uncertainty, the weight of speaking for all of humanity in a moment that would shape history. "I just wanted to understand what we were getting into. I never imagined it would lead to all of this." The door behind them opened. Captain walked in, her boots clicking on the metal floor. She was granddaughter, named after her grandmother who had died peacefully just 3 years ago, still sharp and stubborn until the very end. "Admiral Ambassador, the Outer Reach Coalition has officially requested membership in the Alliance," held out a tablet. "That makes 32 species." Took the tablet and looked at the document. It was written in 17 languages, each one carefully translated, each one meaning the same thing. "We want to stand with you. We want to be free." He signed his name without hesitation. "Tell them welcome," he said, handing the tablet back, "and remind them of our founding principle." "Sorry. We are not here to protect them. We are here to teach them to protect themselves." Nodded and left. Watched her go. "She reminds me of her grandmother, the same fire. The same stubbornness," agreed, "would be proud." They stood in silence for a while, watching the ships drift past the windows. In the distance, they could see the Academy ship Shin, named after the historian who had first uncovered the truth about the conquered. Thousands of young people trained there now, learning not just how to fight, but how to think, how to question, how to stand on their own feet. "The conquered is different now," said quietly. "I received a message from Ambassador last week. He says they have reformed their protection agreements. All species now have the right to develop their own technology. All species can leave at any time. Population management has ended." "Good," said. "It took them long enough. 50 years is nothing to beings who live for. Says they consider it rapid change." Laughed, a dry sound that turned into a cough. He was 92 years old, and his body reminded him of that fact more often now. "What about the species that were already dependent?" he asked. "The ones who had forgotten how to be independent." "The Alliance is helping them," said, "teaching them. It will take generations, but they are learning." Nodded slowly. This was the part that made him proudest, not the ships, not the military strength, the teaching, the helping, the standing beside others until they could stand alone. "We were almost one of them," he said. "We were almost just another protected species, grateful and dependent and slowly fatting away." "But we asked a question," reminded him, "one simple question." Turned away from the window. His assistant was waiting by the door, ready to help him to his quarters. He was tired. He was old. But he had lived long enough to see humanity take its place among the stars. "From what?" he said softly, remembering. "The most important question we ever asked." Took his arm, and together they walked toward the door. "Do you know what they call us now?" she asked. "In the other parts of the galaxy, I have heard several names, the difficult species, the stubborn ones. There is a new one, said. The Awakeners, because we woke them up. We made them see what they had become. Stopped at the door and looked back at the observation window one last time. The stars stretched out before him, endless and beautiful and no longer frightening. We just ask questions, he said. That is all. We just refuse to stop asking questions. Smiled and squeezed his arm. Sometimes that is enough, she said. Sometimes that is everything. They walked out together, leaving the stars behind them. But the stars were no longer distant dreams. They were home now, for humans, for the Alliance, for everyone who had learned the most important lesson Earth had to teach. Never stop asking questions. Never accept easy answers. And never, ever forget how to stand on your own 2 feet.